Good day, everyone. I am Marjorie C. Galigaw. I will be doing an important narration about my chosen person who could be considered as one of our national heroes, and she is Josefa Llanes Escoda. Josefa Llanes Escoda was born on September 20, 1898 in Digras, Ilocos Norte. She was the eldest child of Gabriel Llanes and Mercedes Madamba. She had only one brother named Florencio and five sisters named Loisa, Olvera, Rosario, Poreta, and Eufrosina. Her nickname was Peppa, raised with a strong belief in authentic Christian service. Her mother taught her children the importance of serving the people. Peppa's charming personality, nurtured by her mother, showed up in many aspects of her life. Peppa was recognized as a gay, naturally active and intelligent student in primary school. She was also a firm advocate of education. She is a loving person, caring, and selfless, always thinking of others instead of herself. Josefa graduated as valedictorian in Digras Elementary School and as a salutatorian in Lawag Provincial High School. After finishing her secondary school, she went to Manila to study at Philippine Normal School, or known as now the Philippine Normal University, where she also graduated with honors in 1919. Afterwards, she became a social worker for the Philippines chapter for the American Red Cross, which in turn granted her a scholarship for further studies. She took up and finished a master's degree in sociology at Columbia University in 1925. She also held a position in the National Federation of Women's Clubs, serving as executive secretary in 1923, later serving as president from 1941 to 1944. While in the United States, Josefa joined a group of foreign students who wholeheartedly supported an international house project in New York. Her first trip to United States, she met Antonio Escoda Sr., a journalist of the Philippine Press Bureau. She was later married. They had two children named Maria Teresa and Antonio Jr. Education was her passion. An excellent student, an inquisitive learner, and a passionate teacher. When Josefa came back to the Philippines to resume her teaching duties in 1926, she worked at the Tuberculosis Commission of the Bureau of Health. She also served in the Textbook Board, the Board of Censors for Moving Pictures, and the Labor Board. In 1908 to 1932, she served as the Executive Secretary of the Philippine Anti-Leprosy Society and was affiliated with the Boy Scouts of the Philippines. In the field of social work, Josefa's devotion, responsibility, and unquestionable leadership were shown in her great accomplishment. She founded the Boys' Town for the Unprivileged Boys of Manila. She initiated a successful campaign which called for the provision of lunch and restrooms for women workers and the installation of other facilities for their convenience. She worked hard for the establishment of free nursery classes in Manila where children were served free soap and a glass of milk. She worked for the improvement of health and sanitation in rural areas, the modernization of the prison and penal system, the suppression of vices, and the extension of the benefits of adult education to the rural folks. Josefa was also an active member of the suffragette movement in the Philippines. she was elected as the Secretary of the General Council of Women, which was created to coordinate the activities of the women suffrage workers. As a suffragette, she believed that the modern woman is no longer the wife that clings. She now helps the husband. The woman's demand for independence is motivated by their desire to help their husbands in governmental affairs, which always require the moderation and wisdom of women. Josefa's effort was rewarded when Act 4112 was approved on December 7, 1933, granting the right to vote to Filipino women and making them eligible to all public offices. When the World War II broke out, Josefa and her husband associated themselves with Volunteer Social Aid Committee and enlisted aid for the prisoners of war. Moved by her country's conditions during World War II and called to action by the Bataan Death March, Escoda served the prisoners of war and civil internees. She was in fact the one who distributed multivitamins, food and clothing to the prisoners. A brave woman as she really was, she took a great risk in listing the names of the prisoners in Camp O'Donnell and in helping the American internees at the University of Santo Tomas and Los Baños. In Manila, she housed the stranded women and students who were unable to go back to their respective provinces following the outbreak of the war. It was in June 1944 when her husband was imprisoned in Fort Santiago. 2 months later, she was also arrested and thrown into the dark cells of cell number 16 of the same fort. She was offered freedom in December 1944, but her loyalty to her husband was so strong, she preferred to die with him in prison. Josefa was last seen on January 29, 1945. She was then apparently taken and held in one of the Far Eastern University buildings occupied by the Japanese. It was pre-assumed that she was executed. It was also assumed that her body lies in a common grave in the North Cemetery or Chinese Cemetery, together with others who was executed. Josefa Llanes Escoda is one of the most iconic women in the Philippines history and a founder of a Girl Scout of the Philippines. Josefa was one of the moving spirits behind National Federation of Women's Clubs. Josefa was being honored in various ways, from being immortalized in Philippine currency. A street and a building have also been named after her, and a monument has been dedicated to her memory. She is also depicted on the 1,000 peso bill as one of 3 Filipinos martyred by the Japanese armed forces. Josefa Llanes Escoda's legacy was different from our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal, because of her great courage to help the people during the World War II without hesitation, proving that even though she is a woman, she can act as heroine, a suffragette, a social worker, and a great civil leader. Unlike the deeds of our national hero, because he focused on the Spaniards' maldoings and fought for freedom in a silent but powerful way. They have different ways of serving the nation.